Hey everyone, Tin Man here, back with today's daily jail update, and I almost forgot to do this one because I was too excited making content for the new Outlanders patch, looking at all the new units that got released, the new turbo mode, and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, we've got a new jail, and luckily none of the brand new units are in jail, so we get a full day to experiment with them and see what they're up to before any of them hit a jail, so that's awesome. This jail does hit 2 warriors, Kunkka and Pudge. So it doesn't really invalidate warriors. You still have a lot of other warriors, especially the new spirit, Earth Spirit, as a warrior. You're probably going to put a lower priority on Heartless because of the missing Pudge if you're going to run warriors, or even just any kind of composition that would want to run Heartless. Pudge was a really important part of those compositions because he was one of the sole frontliners. So you'd have to use something like Abaddon, who doesn't have the CC effect, isn't quite as tanky as Pudge for that frontline if you want to run, say, 4 Heartless in the build. So definitely put a lower priority on that, but it's not dead by any means. It's just missing one part. And Kunkka, maybe he wasn't the best warrior in the mid to late game, but kind of adding both of these together does mean that 6 warrior builds probably aren't on the table, but you can still definitely run 3 warriors with Tiny, Tidehunter, Slarder, Troll Warlord, Earth Spirit if you find a good spirit build. We are missing a lot of Knights, though, Chaos Knight and Bat Rider, and although it's just 2, just like the same as Warriors, Knights are definitely much more heavily affected by missing a few units because, they're a smaller alliance. They only have 7 units as opposed to Warriors who have 9 units. So automatically that is a bigger hit, and Bat Rider being the Troll bonus is a very important combination with most Knights builds. Same with Witch Doctor, the other troll that is banned out today. So probably try to avoid Knights, even though I do think they are quite strong now, but they really need the jail to cooperate, which unfortunately it's just not cooperating today. We do see Tinker banned out, and in the past I would say you just completely write off all scrappy inventors, but the most recent patch did add an inventor in Snapfire, who's actually quite powerful, and did add a scrappy, or rather added the scrappy tag to Weaver. Now, I don't really have too much experience in exactly how that all plays out, but suffice to say that just missing one unit like Tinker here is not going to completely shut down a scrappy inventor strategy. Although I will say Tinker is probably one of the more impactful ones to lose because he deals a lot of magic damage, and typically scrappy inventor builds want to pump out a lot of magic damage with the Mage bonus. So without him, you can still try some scrappy builds. I wouldn't completely rule it out. I'd still experiment. But, Scrappy plus Mage is probably not the best combo right now because Tinker is one of the big appeals of that, and of course he's out. Although I do think Snapfire could potentially take his place, but maybe you want to combine the two. Speaking of mages, Ogre Magi is gone, but that is not the biggest deal because you've still got a lot of other really good mages. You might have a little bit lower frontlining in the early game without the Ogre Magi's big frontline presence, but Storm Spirit was an amazing addition to the mage composition and is just a really good AoE magic damage dealer, so now you have plenty of options to complete the Mage bonus, complete the Spirit bonus with the Storm Spirit, and Ogre Magi just becomes less and less appealing in mage compositions because you have so many more options anyway. Other than that, we're missing Enigma as our one ace, so 6 Primordials, definitely not going to be a thing because the Ace of Primordials was one of the big effects there. You could still get 6, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Probably just stick to the ones that work in your composition otherwise, and probably not put too high of priority on 6 of them. Slark is out, and while that is one assassin that is down, assassins are still totally viable, and I'm very curious to see how the new Ember Spirit assassin plays out. He seems pretty strong on paper, hits very hard with his auto attacks, kind of like a Queen of Pain, but with auto attacks. So I do think that assassins still have a lot of power level, although obviously Slark was a big carry if you could get him up to 3-star, but perhaps there's still everything else in the composition is still there, the insects and so on. The last unit to talk about was the Lone Druid, and he's definitely a loss to the Druid compositions. He's a big powerful force, but honestly he doesn't really invalidate anything. There was very little builds built around Lone Druid. You just have to accept that you won't have quite as much power if you're going Druids in the early game. You won't have that good Lone Druid to kind of be a payoff. So you can still play like Enchantress, Nature's Prophet, Io, and Treant in the early and mid game. They're still very powerful, but you just won't have too much more late game, and you want to transition away from them a little bit earlier than normal. So definitely looking towards mages today, looking towards maybe some 3 warrior builds with say dragons as a backline or Arc Warden. Very curious to see how spirit compositions play out, which is probably going to be, I would bet more in the mages side just because Storm Spirit's a great mage and you want to you want to deal magic damage with the spirits, so definitely look to be playing some mages with that. And you can also try to splash the Snapfire as a new inventor, as well as the dragon bonus into that. So very curious to see how that all plays out. And most hunters, other than just Lycan, is missing. I guess I didn't really mention Lycan, but he's just kind of one of the hunters that is fairly easily replaceable with other hunters. Unless you're playing a Legion Commander composition, you really want Lycan. But I've been loving Legion Commander recently, and Lycan is an important part of that. But regardless, she's not banned, so you can still probably find a way to make that build work. So thank you so much for watching. Good luck in your games today, and I will see you tomorrow.